Hi everyone, I'm Jim Tolles. Today I want to talk about awakening, forgetfulness, and lack of concentration. Essentially, I'm talking about shifts that happen in the mind. Before I get going on this topic, I just want to remind you that down below I have links to similar topics. And of course, I blog regularly at spiritualawakeningprocess.com, and I have these YouTube videos. Before we can really dive into this topic, there's several really important points to make. One of which is that there are legitimate neurological problems that people have. And if there's a lot of ongoing problems with thinking and with how the brain is working, then I would point you towards a health professional. At no time do we want to use spiritual awakening as an excuse to not embrace all the other different tools and possibilities that exist. Secondly, there are legitimate mental health concerns, and that's another avenue that you may want to explore before deciding this has anything to do with awakening. That if there's problems with cognition, talking to a mental health practitioner may be wise. Then we want to talk about stress, that if you've had prolonged stress, that messes up a lot of different things and how we think and how we feel and all that. So finding ways to relax yourself and to come out of these stressful times. Obviously, inner work helps with some of this, but getting to a calmer inner keel is important. And then we get into food, rest, activity, and substance use. And these are important topics as well because how we treat our body and how we take care of it or how we don't take care of it directly impacts how we think and how we feel. If you're not sleeping well enough, that absolutely does things to the mind. It's just how our biology works. If we're not eating well, there's some interesting things that can happen in terms of how well we think. And of course, substances cause all sorts of problems. So we don't need substances to realize spiritual freedom. There's a lot of things going on with a lot of different substances, and getting free of them is important. These are some big initial things that need to be addressed before we come to the conclusion that, yeah, this is an awakening thing. And one of the initial points I want to make about awakening is any way that we lose a sense of cognition, clarity, ability to think in certain ways is temporary. It's temporary, and as we resolve whatever is shifting in our minds, then we regain that ability, and usually our intellect is enhanced. Why is it enhanced? It's because our ego cuts out our ability to do a lot of different things based off of whatever we think about ourselves. So, for example, a lot of people think they're bad at math, and it's probably not true. What happened probably was in childhood at some point they had initial bad experiences, and then they believed that they were bad at math, and they just kept perpetuating this belief. Now the ego drops away, the core emotional wound, whatever happened, maybe it was a teacher yelled at them or something about doing something wrong on the blackboard back in the day, back when we had blackboards. That wounding goes away, suddenly the mind opens up and it's like, actually, I can figure this out. Now there's a skill set that gets developed to be able to do more stuff with math and whatever you care to get into. And then pretty soon, the mind can do all this just fine. And the person finds out, actually, I'm fine with all these numbers and things. It's not scary at all. I can be pretty good at it. And in some cases, maybe somebody goes further into physics and calculus and other things like that. So what was happening there during that time where the brain didn't seem like it was working is an old belief system was breaking away. And it really feels like this, and you don't quote me on this, but it feels like you are getting rewired. It's like something's going on up here. It's like, well, this should be plugged in here, and like zap, you're like, whoa, what was that? And then it's weird for a while, it calms down. You're like, actually, I can figure this out, and I can see this, and I understand that now. So forgetfulness, lack of concentration in the context of a spiritual awakening are temporary. Can that temporariness be like weeks, months, and sometimes years? Yeah, it can. There's a lot that can go on as we dissolve that. It's not something to be scared of. Usually anywhere we get scared and we trigger our fight or flight response, that stress response, that creates more confusion in the mind. Usually what most of us do is like nothing. It's just like, okay, so my brain's offline. And since that's often part of doing things that are more precise, this isn't a good time if you're feeling really foggy and lacking the ability to concentrate easily. This isn't a good time to be driving, using heavy machinery, doing anything with any kind of precision, using knives. Let your spouse or partner or friend do the chopping of the vegetables if you're really, really out of it. It's stuff like that. It's pretty practical. You say, okay, I give myself this space, and you do things like meditate and allow things to calm down, and you're not trying to force your brain to do things when it really does feel like it's offline. And as I said, this is a temporary thing, so shifts come, and then the mind opens up. To alleviate some of the confusion that can come up, which is also another mind shift. That's usually us hanging on to our old beliefs or old ideas about ourselves and about life that are wrong. So we have to let those go so that we remove the conflict of seeing what is. So once again, going back to that simple little math example, the person who thinks that she's bad at math has this idea and she's holding on to it. And another part of it is like, no, that's not true anymore. It's like it had to do with this old emotion, this old experience with your fifth grade teacher. And another part's just so used to believing, no, I'm really terrible at it. And, this creates that sort of confusion, that inner friction. So we let go of that part. And this applies in a lot of different things where we say, I can be this, but I can't be that. I can be this, I can't be that. And, as far as what we can do intellectually, the sky is the limit. Certainly some people have greater aptitudes than others, but we don't really know what those are when we're still too stuck in our ego to even allow the possibility that our mind can think in all these other different ways, in ways that we can't even conceive of yet. In short, mind shifts happen. It's okay. It's really not that big of a deal. As I said, we don't do stuff that requires lots of precision, fast movement. Give yourself that space to relax in order to allow what you are discovering, letting go of resistance. As always, the spiritual path brings us closer to truth, so it's not about believing some new set of ideas. It's about what's being realized inside. And whether that's something your ego likes or doesn't tends to create more or less confusion, forgetfulness, and lack of concentration. And the briefest way to talk about this is to say surrender again. So surrender, allow things the time they need to resolve and to realign themselves. I hope this is helpful. Feel free to comment below if you have questions, and check out some of those other resources that are underneath this video.